This one chapter in the Gospel of John is probably the single richest chapter in all of the Bible in terms of understanding who Jesus is. It encompasses everything that we find in the Old and the New Testaments about the person and the deity of Jesus Christ. Verse 1 names him as God, both God and with God. Verse 3 as the creator of all things. And verse 4 as the true light of God revealed to man. And then as we get to these last verses from 29 on, we learn several more things through the titles that the apostle writes about him. We read in verse 29 and 36 that he's the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. In verse 30, we read that he's eternally existent. John the Baptizer, who is at least 6 months older than Jesus, says that he existed before me, even though he was born first. Jesus existed before him. We see him called Rabbi, which means teacher. It's a title of honor. Messiah, the anointed one. Son of God and King of Israel in verse 49. And in verse 51, the Son of Man. Let's hang on a Son of Man for just a second. This phrase is found throughout the Old and the New Testaments, and it has three uses. The first use is in the Old Testament specifically, and it's a title used to describe the frailty of men and women, of us, of people, and how weak we are, and how incapable of following the law of God we are. The second time we see it in the Old Testament is in the book of Ezekiel. We see it several times as God calls Ezekiel, a son of man, to explain to Ezekiel just how weak he is. Just how weak he is, how broken he is without God. And the third way we see Son of Man used is as a title for the coming king, the Messiah. We see it twice in the Old Testament and 43 times in the New Testament. Son of Man used to describe the Messiah, the God with us. In 51 verses in the Gospel of John, in the first chapter, over 900 words, we learn everything we need to know about Jesus to decide for ourselves if he will be the God of our life, the King of our life, or if we will turn away from that.